So do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, that's good. So today is my second session. And again, we're going to speak about difficult activities in our books. Today it's Superminds 3 and 4. Thank you for writing some ideas which to include in my presentation. I really appreciate this. It really helped me. So the first task that I've chosen is this. It's in Superminds 3, starter unit, and this picture shows a family tree of the main character, Ben. And here our students are supposed to learn new words about family. That's a tricky moment because our students sometimes don't understand the relations in their families. And looking at Ben's family tree, they're puzzled. They don't understand who is who. So what I suggest here is you show this picture on the board, you extend it, and you can circle some people like Penny and Ben, for example, and tell them that they are brother and sister. You can write this under the names. Some of them have brothers and sisters, so it's easier. Also, you circle other two names and you say that they are sister and sister. So here we have no problems. Then you can circle Ben and Paula, for example, and ask students, are they brother and sister? Some of them may say yes, but actually they are not brother and sister, they are cousins. So you explain this in this way. The same you do with mother, father, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma. So when you circle, they see these people and it becomes easier. Also, you can ask students about their families, like, have you got a brother, aunt, cousin? What are their names? If they give responses, they understand you. And after presenting these family words, you can start explaining the target grammar. So here we have apostrophe S. So again, you circle two people like Ben and Maria, and you ask students, who's Maria? And they can say that it's mother. So whose mother? Ben's mother. And you write this sentence on the board. You can put a cross above Maria to show that you are speaking about her. So who's she? She is Ben's mother. You do the same with other people. You ask questions, the students answer. And then when they have no problems with Ben's family tree, you can ask them to draw their family trees and write about their relatives. So it can be a small tree with like mom and dad or sister only, but if they make correct sentences, they got the idea. So what about you? How do you cope with this? Maybe someone can share.
No, I do practically the same, but without circles.
And
I just mention on the board.
You point, yes?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the file which I usually use. I sometimes extend this task, of course, with the strong groups, or maybe on the second lesson on the same topic. But I try to show the contrast between apostrophe S like is and apostrophe S is possessive, because students, they get used to this apostrophe S like possessive case. And then after a pair of lessons, they completely forget about it and decide that it's is. So, and I sometimes extend it to show this contrast and ask them to identify. But I need maybe a couple of minutes to find this. And if you want, I can demonstrate.
Okay, Katya. Thank you.
Lena, I think I do it opposite. Before you present this with the picture, and then you ask them to draw the tree. As I remember, we did it like this. First, I asked them about their stuff, for example, the mobile phones, the student's book, and so on. And for example, I take somebody's stuff and ask whose mobile phone is this. So like this, I show the apostrophe S that we have it. And then you can write the family members on the board, for example, mother, father, dad, sister. You pre-teach this vocabulary, explain it. And after that, you can ask your students to write on the board the names of their family members. After this, you can ask whose mom is this one, like Tatiana, whose mom is this? It's, I don't know, Alex mom, yeah? And you write these sentences on the board. And only after this, I suggest them to look at the student's book. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a good idea, but sometimes it happens so that with mobile phones, with cars, with toys, it's easier because they have only one name. Yeah, so it's easier to say that this is Ben's telephone. Yes, but when they see two names, something strange happens in their heads, and they mix the names. They can put names in different parts of the sentence.
Yeah, you should think about this way in details, I think.
Yes,
like step by step.
So that's why I drew this arrow. So we start with Maria, and who is she? Katya, what about your file?
I have found.
Okay. So you can show.
So I usually take this exercise. It's from a book by the Russian author, but at least there are some useful exercise here. First of all, I focus the attention of the students on the picture and elicit the names of toys. So we usually circle them, write names, so what can they see? And also I ask who can they see in the picture? I mean the people, and ask them to look at the text fast and find the names of these children. And then we write like, this is Dick, and the girl is Pam. Sometimes I can ask about their predictions, who are they, friends or one family, and so on, just to make it more interesting. And then we read the first sentence and I show them this is. And then ask one strong student to make this phrase, this is, shorter. Of course, it's not natural, but I do it to show them that we can put is closer to the word. And then we, step by step, read one sentence, circle the phrases with apostrophe and S, and think, does this apostrophe and S show their possession, or it's just is?
Katya, 1 second, please. You shorten the first sentence. So like this is?
I show them that, can we make it shorter? They usually do it like this. I tell them that, yes, we can do it, but not with this word.
Maybe it's easier to rewrite the text and start with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I have never done it. So the main point here just that there is plenty of apostrophe and S, and it's good exercise just to practice differentiating possession and is, contraction of is.
Yeah, I got your idea. That's useful. Yeah. Thank you.
That's useful, and also I think we can use Kate's exercise for your space, because they have got in your space 1.1. We have got unit 4, if I'm not mistaken, or unit 3. there is this part where we have to distinguish apostrophe S and S.
And I think there is exercise in grammar book as well with this. They need to correct the mistakes. And sometimes yeah, there is plural form, apostrophe S, like possessive case, shortened form, and so on. So yeah, we need to show them that apostrophe S can have different meanings. Okay, so let's say bye-bye to Ben here. And the next task is listening. Here we have the picture and 6 sentences that students need to finish after listening. That can be horrible, and students are usually frightened. They look at this and say, what is it? How can we do it? So what I do usually, we discuss this picture first. Students tell me what they see, what food they see, how many children there are, where they are, what they are doing, and so on. And after discussing, we read these sentences all together, and I draw their attention to the prepositions and conjunctions. So I circle, for example, at, and I want them to predict the answers. Lunch starts at. What can be after that? And usually they say that it is about time. So at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock. So they understand this, they brainstorm ideas. We do the same with other sentences. So in number 2, they understand that it is about place. In number 3, it's quite difficult. So here I need to help them and say that children have something and they eat first. So they need to hear what the children have. Then favorite school dinner, that's the easiest one. Then with on, they usually say that it is about day. So they listen and write the correct day. When we discuss this, I don't let them to write any ideas. I ask them only to circle the words. And then they listen for 2 times, and usually it's enough for completing this task. So this is my procedure. I do this. What about you? Natasha Chelnakova asked about this task, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Natasha,
Yes,
what usually you do?
Yes, this time I found it a little bit easier to explain to my students, as I used like almost the same procedure like you discussed now, because we started with discussion of the picture. Maybe I elicited some new words for them, like canteen. I showed them maybe another, I don't know, that was like pre-teaching. Then we, of course, we just decided what can be missed here. And so then they listened. But as far as I remember, the audio is very difficult for them, because there are no straight, no pauses and no straight answers for every question. That was, yes, the speed problem, yes, very fast. And some phrases from these native speakers were very difficult. So like I found I caught myself and our students also, like we didn't used to these phrases, and there are no other examples from other text or something. So like maybe we can practice something else to understand more this, fast speech. Because
well,
it was quite difficult.
We can record ourselves and make a simpler version of this task.
It's again one of the tasks that make you feel embarrassed, and students, okay, they are ready to write the time, where, what, the day even, and they, what? I can't understand anything they're speaking about. It's like, because English children, I think, are more difficult to understand than Americans, and that's like specific.
Maybe for the first time you can just Sorry, Natash, maybe for the first time you can just listen to the audio with closed books and ask some common questions. After that, also, I suggest do some activity with these prepositions in word wall, like to choose, what should be after at or in or with, and after that, open the exercise, circle, and follow the Lena's procedure. So like this, it will be easier. I think.
Yes, maybe. The problem is that you, like a teacher, you think that this is a fast activity and you're supposed to.
I don't think so.
So, like, you just want to cover this activity and the full page, and maybe to go to the next page, but it's impossible. It's very complicated, and yes, it's time consuming. And yeah, I think your method, and Alina, you've got beautiful ideas. I think yes, you just should.
Talking about the problem which you mentioned, that students can't write everything at once. It's really a problem because as I remember, it's Sem 3.
Yes. So
usually they struggle to write days of week. They got stuck in these moments, and in such tasks, sometimes I divide the students into different groups, and we can ask one group to write answers to number 1 and 4, for example, another group to number 2 and 5, another group to number 3 and 6. And it gives them a period of time when they can write without hesitation, without trying to be fast and hear and write at the same moment. So they can concentrate.
Yeah, we can follow your procedure as well. It's interesting to divide them in groups. Maybe I will try this next year. Thank you, Kat. Okay, so let's move on then. Here we continue this yummy topic, and we start speaking about shall we construction. So how I teach this? I usually draw a pot on the board and I say, let's cook, for example, some fish soup. And children say, okay, let's cook. We're hungry and so on. So I ask them, shall we put some chicken in our soup? So it's fish soup. Why do we need to put chicken? And they say, no, no, no. I say, bad idea. And I write it on the board. Then how about some fish? They say, yes. Say, good idea. And also write it on the board. So this way I write the target grammar on the board and they see it and they understand that we use shall we and how about when we want to add something. Then I ask them to make questions and now they ask me, for example, shall we put some onions? Shall we put some carrots? Shall we put some potatoes? And I answer good idea or bad idea. And I write the words in the pot. And when we finish our soup, we can here revise there are constructions and say, for example, there are some onions, there is some fish, and so on. So we completed our task. And then I usually find some yummy pictures like pizza salad, fruit salad, soup, and I don't show them to students first. I ask 2 students to come to the board, take one of the pictures, and one of them is a cook, another one is a hungry person, and they make this dialogue using target grammar on the board. So, for example, they have pizza, they ask each other, shall we put some cheese? How about some chicken? How about some tomatoes? And so on. They really like these pictures and they memorize the grammar easily. So what about you?
So I remember this exercise, and my students liked it very much. At the beginning, I did the same as you, but then ask one student to come to the board. I gave him food cards, a lot of, and we decided to make like a surprise salad. And he asked, how about tomato? And some students say yes or no. And then we have some mixed surprise salad. And then we decided, is it tasty or not? Who would like to eat it or not? Someone, oh, wow, fish with mango. Wow, I don't like it. Like this. It was like a joke. And they asked me to continue the lesson like this, all the lesson.
Because they like this.
To go, to the board to make some surprise food.
Thank you, Len.
Look, I just wanted to ask you about, not only you, but all of us, how you deal with the following problem. Look, at first I had the same, like we drilled this shall we put, and so on. But then in the practice book, if I'm not mistaken, and in the text, they have got shall we go to the cinema? And my students tend to omit go, like shall we in the cinema? Like probably they remembered like this how about, yeah, and that was the reason why. But when we try to extend this structure to other suggestions, they like stuck with it. So shall we put, they remembered, but as for the rest, they just
maybe you need to take some cards and places in town and distribute them and say, shall we go to the cinema? And they say yes, and so on. A good idea. Shall we go to the swimming pool? No, I don't want to, and so on. So if you want to practice verbs, take other cards.
So also to drill it, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, because they had it in the test, if I'm not mistaken, this review test, and some of them got mistake there in this part. Okay, thank you.
So the next slide is about grammar puzzles that we have in our books, and these puzzles are aimed to help students to construct sentences using these two target grammar topics, which we can find in any unit. There can be two kinds. The first kind is 3 columns with 5 lines, where they need to find the correct beginning, middle, and end. Yes. And the second task is with a picture. So they need to look at this picture and understand what is going on there, and then to make the correct sentence. For some students, it's really difficult because they don't maybe fully got this grammar. But for others, it's easier. So those who have no problems with grammar complete these tasks with ease. So let's look closer at the first type. So, for example, this one is about is there construction and shall we. So here I usually draw my students' attention to questions, to negative and positive sentences. We circle the question marks, the full stops. Also, I ask them to look at the last words in the sentence, in the parts of the sentences, and the first words, and also at plural and singular nouns. So, for example, they see in number 5, let's make. So we finish with make. And in the middle column, we have make some vegetables. So you need to say that we can't use make. So it's not correct. Also, you can ask them about the amount of questions here. So they can count the question marks and understand that there are only 2 positive or maybe 1 positive and 1 negative sentence and 3 questions. So also you can circle some and any or underline them and ask, do we use any in positive sentences or in negative or in questions? So first you need to analyze these parts of the sentences, and then students can try to construct the real sentences. So what about you? How do you do
May
it?
I?
Mhm.
Len, can I demonstrate the screen,
Yes.
please? I
Mhm.
think it will be easier. Okay, so I tried this activity with students. So first we just take some question, for example, is there any roll in my sandwich? Yeah. For example, I ask them to make a pyramid, like is, what's next? Is there? Next, is there any? And so on. Is there? Okay, any? Next one. So they write it on the board, yeah? Is there any cheese? And the last, is there any cheese in my roll? Any cheese in my roll? And next step, you ask them, is it positive, negative, or a question? So the answer is a question. Then next you change, for example, you write, you ask them to write not a cheese, but I don't know, maybe some crisps, yeah? And you ask, what do you need to change if they are crisps? So some of them say that it's not is, it's are. They change it and they have a new sentence. You play with sentences, with negative and positive sentences the same way. And during this procedure, you also pay the attention to any. When we use any, you write it here. For example, we use any in positive or in negative and questions. We use some in positive, yeah, and so on. So you make this, let's say, you write these prompts on the board and then you go to your workbook. So something like this.
Okay, but I think it's logical to play this game when you explain this new grammar. But these grammar puzzles are at the final page of the unit. So that's not very logical to play this game. So they should know these constructions by this time.
They should, but I don't think that they remember everything. So maybe like
yes.
a lead-in, it might
maybe
be.
yes. Yeah, maybe yes.
I do.
Who wants to say something? Len, you? Len, we can't hear you. Turn on the microphone, please.
I like horizontal way of such a game, as we can call it. For example, I write is or are, then I write there, then any or some, and some ingredients. And they need to choose, like in exercise 2, they make a wave from the sentence. But they see that on the second place, it's supposed to be the one word there every time. So they just decide is or are. Like
yes, so they need to look at the nouns. Yes.
Yeah, you look. I circle the noun, the ending, and to pay the attention to the verb to be.
Okay.
And sometimes I also write some, not only any. And they some students ask me, why you write some? We can't use it. Okay, very good. We can't. You see my mistake. It was the point at, no, it's what my aim.
That's great when they can see the mistakes.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes it's useful to direct their attention on these lines because we have to show them that they need to write a word. So we can just ask them, where can we write extra word? And they have to circle it or highlight somehow.
And also, I really like taking like 5 different colors to color these sentences. Sometimes my students draw symbols like triangles, circles, and so on, but they never draw lines because that's impossible to read the sentences if they draw lines. And I also noticed that in Presentation Plus, this task looks differently. So I think here it is much easier. Well, we can do this, but here is no analysis of language. So they just need to put these parts of sentences in the correct order. So that's really easy. So we never do it. I just show them this exercise on the board, from workbook, and we do it together. So I never do it in Presentation Plus. So the next grammar puzzle is with pictures. So here I ask them to look at the time, yes, at the person in this picture. I draw their attention to the pronouns like he, she, and so on. And they, when they understand what is in this picture, they can make sentences. So, for example, in the first one, they understand that she has some breakfast and they see the time. If they know the time, they can easily make a sentence. With the next one, it is more difficult because here we have 4 o'clock, but there isn't this variant. So sometimes they can say, you always play tennis before 8. Well, I think it's also correct. 4 is before 8, why not? So here we can have 2 variants. And also you maybe should underline or circle the pronoun and ask them, do we need S in a verb? For example, you always place or you always play. So this is my way. And also, let's look what Presentation Plus says. They have a more difficult version because students don't see the full structure. So they need just to press and scroll to see the variants. So they don't understand what is in the next column. So again, I think in workbook it is better presented.
Yes, Lian, thank you. I also like the second puzzles because more often students don't have any difficulties here. But as you mentioned, there are some, mistakes in these books. There are many. 2 variants are possible, and it's not not only about these puzzles, but about other questions too. So,
but if they make correct sentences,
yes,
that's absolutely okay, I think.
Yes, I also said, okay, great, you found the second variant. Good of you. Just
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So, Natasha, I like your face and you look at this slide.
Yes,
So-
I decided to skip this slide this year. I think it's like a waste of time.
Okay, I think that I've never done it with my students. The previous task with the time machine is great, so you can discuss what students would do if they travel in this time machine. But this text I also skipped. So I decided to look at it, and I have some ideas how we can present this information. So first, we need to draw a timeline on the board with this year and explain what it means. So what is BC, what is AD? We can draw minuses and pluses to show them that BC means a long time ago, and AD is like modern time. Then together we read this introduction to this text, and we look at this plan of Babylon. I would ask them to cover the second part with gates, ziggurat, and gardens, so they couldn't see this text. And instead, I would show them pictures. For example, the first with gates, which are in the museum now. The second is with ziggurat, this temple that they used, and the last with the gardens. So, and I would mention that here they can see ziggurat. Yeah, so maybe some of them know about this tower, Babylon Tower, maybe not. So after discussing these pictures and the plan of the city, I would ask them to read these parts of the text about the buildings, and then I would ask some questions about these places. And after this discussion, they, I think, can go to these sentences and correct them. So I think in this way, it's not so difficult, not so challenging. If you discuss first, you have pictures and so on. Natasha, you did it?
No, I think no, because there are I think several reasons why I don't take it. No time, because I see that this is quite difficult. Imagine if we follow your steps. I think it could take, it would take maybe a whole lesson.
Yes, it's time consuming.
Clear lesson and extra information. The pronunciation is quite difficult, and yeah, it's like clear lesson. That's why if I have enough time, why not? It's interesting, but I'm always short of time. That's why I just skip it without any hesitation even. Of course, okay, maybe one day some of them will read this.
Well, maybe we can do it at the end of the year if we have some lessons. Yeah, or if the groups are smaller. Yeah.
Yes, and also there are many tasks like this in this some books, and I really hope that maybe we can use them in our summer camps, because they're very interesting, but no time during the year.
Well, the task with time machine I used at one of the speaking lessons. I don't remember using this text, but why not? We can add it somewhere in speaking lessons or maybe in camp. Yeah.
Yes.
Has anyone tried to do it? No one. We haven't got brave teachers. Yeah, no time. Okay.
I even haven't noticed this page.
You're lucky.
Maybe because usually we are short of time to cover all the important grammar and vocabulary and so on.
And here's baby alone. Yes. Okay. So the next task is about questions after the story, like quiz. Here we have answers and students are supposed to write questions. Also a very difficult task. So what I do, we do it as a whole class activity, because if they work individually, they write anything, but not the correct variants. So I ask them to find these phrases in the text, like go to the caves. We can underline this phrase, and then I ask them to make questions. So their questions can be absolutely different and not always correct. So they can say, go to the caves, just to change intonation. And they say that that's not a question, it's incorrect. Then they say, the book says go to the caves. So they think that if the sentence is longer, that can be a question, but it's also a mistake. Then they can say does or maybe do the book say go to the caves. If they say with do, that's closer to the correct variant. So gradually, step by step, we find the correct variant and we write what does the book say. And with other answers, we also find them in the text, we underline and we try to brainstorm the questions. Katya Gerasimova, you asked about this, yes?
Yes, because I just skipped this one because I remember one of the students, like not a student, it's not from Welcome, like the sister of my boyfriend. She had the task in her spotlight book where she had to write the questions for the answers. And it was extremely challenging to explain her, even in Russian. I'm not talking about any communicative approach. Yeah. Yeah, and then I saw it here and like, how come? Like I also noticed that we have got on our word wall platform some like question words. So I thought maybe we have to pre-teach question words, like we call like when it's about time, who about person, but still like.
But I think I agree with Kate that it's tough, and in Superminds too, we don't even have these tasks to evaluate their skills to make questions. In Superminds 3, we don't have anywhere, and when this exercise in one lesson, in one unit, and when we don't review it at all. I mean, we review it in past simple, I think in the last units, where we somehow try to make questions, but I think we need to maybe look in advance and somehow evaluate this skill before this unit, to practice these questions, maybe sometimes ask our students to make questions about stories, so like this.
I think in Superminds 3 we have only this task with questions, but in Superminds 4 there are more, and in Superminds 5 again they have a lot of tasks with questions, so they need to practice this. Well, if you skip this task, you can use this task from Presentation Plus, because they have the questions and the answers. Well, again, it's very easy just to do it all together on the board. What I suggest, you can cut the questions and the answers and mix them and give each student a set of cards. They sit and they match. So it can be on time, it can be in groups, it can be like a competition. But that's more interesting than to just skip it. Yes.
Yeah,
We need something to finish the story with.
Actually, this is a good idea to use this presentation plus because it's much easier. And if we ask our students to write two more questions and answers from the story, and maybe don't show anybody their questions, but demonstrate their answers, maybe write on the board or write on a piece of paper and put on the desk. Maybe it can develop their skill of writing questions basing on the example.
Yeah, Katya, I like your idea. We can extend this activity. Not to skip it, but extend. Okay, so the next one, this is with phonics focus. I think we discussed it in the previous session. So here we have two exercises, 3 and 4. In number 3, they have to find a phrase and identify who says it. So it's very easy. And then exercise 4 is aimed at practicing a new sentence. They need to recognize this sound spelling relationship. And well, if I do it, if I don't skip it, we usually read the sentence in the form of a tongue twister. So who is faster? So it's like a competition. But again, if we have time, what we can do, we can find the words with these sounds in the book, or maybe they can use the fantasy, yes, and they write them in their notebooks or on the board. Also, we can make a competition, divide them into groups, and one group finds the words with S, another group with SH, and we give them like 1 or 2 minutes and then count who has found more words. So I think for this we need like 10 minutes. Yes. So if you have time, if time allows, why not? Why not do it? But usually we don't have.
Yeah. Yes, good ideas. Like,
Okay.
beautiful.
So let's move on. This regular and irregular verbs. This slide is about regular verbs, and here we have some pictures that tell a story. I usually ask my students to cover this text with the notebooks or other books and look only at the pictures. So we discuss these pictures, they tell me what happens there, then they read and number, and then they listen and check. So this is the usual procedure, but then we need to practice regular verbs, and I ask them to make their stories. First, I demonstrate them my story, and again, I cross the words, or maybe if I don't demonstrate it on the board, I just tell them to cross some words. And I say, then yesterday, Mary and her friends played football. Mary kicked the ball very hard. She landed on the grass and ouch, shouted Mary. She went to the doctor. The doctor looked at her arm or leg or something, yes, and you're okay. The doctor smiles. So something like this. So I make the story, they understand that they need to change the words, and I ask them to work individually, and we spend like 10 or 12 minutes on this, but they really like it. Their stories are interesting. They ask for some words which they don't know. And the next task in exercise 2 on this green box, we also change this. We cross the food and the animal, and I again make a story, and then they make their stories. They can work in pairs here, or it can be a mingling activity. So I give them the time, and then they walk and tell their stories to as many people as they can. Can be not one story, but different ones, with tigers, with cats, with dogs, with giraffes, elephants, and other animals. So that's great.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, do they tell? Yeah, so they do not read the stories.
No. They take their books, but they don't write in their books. So they just cross the words, and they come to a student and say, I was so hungry, great, fruit salad, yummy. Suddenly the tiger jumped onto the table, and so on. When they finish this story, they say bye-bye, they go to another partner and they speak about, I know, biscuits and giraffe. Yes?
Okay, got it.
Yes, Lena, I just want to thank you for these ideas, because I watched your open lesson and it was there. Yes, and thanks just to you and to myself also that I watched it in advance before this exact page.
What lesson?
Your open lesson is in Welcome LMS. We can watch this exact example. How to deal with this grammar, and how to present, and how to even change spaghetti and the dog. Yes, and it worked really good. Like, I have never done these pages before like this, and yes, it was a funny lesson. Students were involved. They made a lot of stories, even about this poor boy or girl, yes, who went to the doctor. And of course, they were absolutely happy and fascinated doing exercise too. Like, I've never done before. So, and of course, the same page, after the song with monsters.
It's the next.
Like, they are really involved to write about their own monsters, and like we did like a mingle activity, onion rings. Yes, so it was their homework to write about the monsters. They drew some comics, and then they did this onion ring activity. So they read their stories, and then we discussed. We vote for the best story. So it was very excited.
Nata, thank you for feedback. Very positive feedback. Yeah, with the regular verbs, it's the same. Always welcome. Yeah, I really like these pages. They're great. They boost students' imagination. The pictures are wonderful. So I thank the authors of this book for these pages. Yeah. So my students and your students benefit from them, I think. Okay, so the procedure is the same. Yeah, we make our stories. We tell our partners about them. So it's the same. What about others? Maybe someone can share. Maybe also someone has some good ideas with this.
Okay, may I add so about this monsters and Harry? So then what I do, it's before making the story, I usually ask the children to read to each other the correct variant of the story, so they get accustomed. After that, there was an explanation that is past and so on, and I draw something for them. Then I write a list of these verbs in the correct order on the board, so everybody can see it. And what I do next, I ask them to close the story, but they have already read it several times or even listen, and they reconstruct the story each. So it may be it might seem not as interesting as creating their own story, but still it's quite beneficial, because they use their these verbs in the past in the story. So one person may tell it, another checks, or maybe helps. Usually nobody, even weaker students, have troubles doing this. And yes, after all these stages, we move to the creating their own stories.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, do you write the verbs in present or in past?
In past, of course.
And do you write them with nouns or without?
Without, just verbs. They have got the verbs, and they look at the pictures, and they try to reconstruct. So all this. And it's quite easy because they had already read the story to each other, the sentences. We have already, as Lena explained her steps, done this discussion with the pictures. Then we opened the sentences, and then we matched the sentences to the pictures, and we listened and checked, then we read, and then only after that we tell the story on the pictures, and after that we create our own story.
Well, I usually write the forms on the board when we discuss these pictures. So they say the monster, for example, have a stomach ache. I say, have is present. What about the past? Maybe someone knows and says had. So I write had. And then we practice.
Yeah, in fact, we did the same what Anya said, but I didn't take listening for presentation of this task. It was like for practice. Before or after we drilled some of the forms together, they did listening. And then I closed, like I showed on the screen only pictures. So we put numbers, like what was the first, the second. Then we tried to restore the meaning. Then I will ask students to work in pairs. So for example, like the first, I say like last Friday, Lily woke up at 7:30. Then, for example, my partner says this, talks about the second picture. So we retell and then we swap the pairs. But though we drilled the verbs, sometimes they still like use present form. So that's why maybe writing the correct form on the board will be effective. But I'm not sure. My aim was to test, like sometimes I just tell them like, okay, it's time to test your memory, yeah, and close the books.
Well, Kat, I asked them to work in pairs or in groups when we do the next task, number 3, with Chocolate Monster, where they have some pictures and they need to finish the story. So then they can discuss pictures in turns. They have this example, they look at this green box, and then they finish their stories. They can use the same ending as in this box or think about their own. But I think that with this task, with number 1, that's not a good idea to work in pairs. So we need to first do it all together and practice, and then let them free your practice.
So procedure for this lesson will be the following one. Yes. So at first, like listening, then, for example, so we discuss it all together. Then
first I discuss with them. First we discuss all the pictures. What happens there? Then we listen. Then only we look at the text, because I told you that I ask students to cover the text. They don't look at it.
Yeah. So like and so after they like read the text all together, then they cross. Then they make they make their stories. And then if they have no troubles here, I ask them to do exercise 3 and to finish the story with their ideas in groups or in pairs. But to make the stories in mingling activity, like you
No. Here it's not a mingling activity. Here they work in pairs or groups. So they sit and they look at the pictures and they make stories one story for the group.
One story for the group.
Yes.
Can I
Because
add
this task
something?
is more difficult. Yes, Natasha.
Yes, as I have big groups, yes, sometimes it's impossible to review something in the beginning of the lesson, then focus on this exact page, yes, and my students did this story about chocolate monster as a homework, yes. So the task was to write the story and to draw a comic, and they can use extra papers or do this in their notebooks. So what happened next lesson? It was very interesting. So the first thing is like the children were very inspired and they created their own monsters, not even chocolate monsters, yes? So they created some, I don't know, crazy names about their monsters. They really like this picture with the doctor, and they created like angry moms or something like this. They were very happy to, say some good words to their monsters. I think it was like a role play. Yes, they imagined themselves maybe to be adults, something like this. And also it was really interesting to read this text as this onion rings activity. Yes, you imagine this, because there were two things that say the situations. So as usual, some students are not ready. They found any reasons not to do this homework, and it was a quick decision to put these not ready students in the middle, right? So they are going to be big ears, good listeners, blah, blah, blah. So, and the students who were ready, they read their stories to these prepared students. But these students in the middle, they had a task. Listen to their stories very actively. So then I asked you some questions. And there were two easy questions for you. What were the monsters' names, and what were their problems? Yeah, and of course, some of them maybe didn't listen to, they don't remember. If the stories were supported with pictures, of course, they remember everything and blah, blah, blah. And then we voted for the best story. So that was a beautiful start of the lesson. If you like this, you can use this next time.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha. Yeah, we need to engage the students who are not ready. And yeah, why not? You gave them the task to listen, then they were busy, at least in the classroom, not at home, but at least at the classroom. Okay, so the next, here we have degrees of comparison. And I really like these tasks in the book. There are many of them where students can compare different gadgets, toys, or even things in the classroom. So to compare things, we can write prices, for example, on stickers or on our flashcards. Yes, and take them and compare. Or another way is to write some adjectives on the stickers, on pieces of paper, like small, big, ugly, expensive, cheap, and so on, and give students a lot of cards with animals, with toys, with school things, and so on. They take 2 cards and 1 card with the adjective, and they compare, for example, cat and frog, yes, and they have beautiful, yes, and they can say, for some students, the frog is more beautiful than the cat. Yes, so they have different ideas. If we need superlative degree, we can ask them to take 3 pictures, and in this way it can be like the dog is the ugliest, animal in this group. So this is my idea. Of course, you can find some pictures on the internet, like gadgets, 3 mobile phones or 3 laptops, and ask your students to compare them. Or you can take their possessions, for example, 3 bags, and discuss which one is bigger, which one is more beautiful, which one is smaller, and so on. So we need cards, we need their things, we can use the internet, we can look around the classroom, and so on. We can compare everything. Even we can ask them to stand in the line, and we can compare themselves. So who is shorter, who is higher? We can ask how old they are. So who is the oldest, who is the youngest in the group? So a lot of ideas. What about you? How do you drill degrees of comparison?
I'm sorry, before before Simon will start talking, Leon, am I right that you, for example, with the flashcards, so am I right that you drill both?
No. First, we drill comparatives, some lessons. And then when they have no difficulty with them, we start superlatives.
Okay.
Yes, quite agree with these methods. I also used stickers with prices. I also used some videos from the internet. There is a happy hamster, something like this, and he likes grammar. And he learned these superlatives and comparatives with that cat and with his 2 friends, a boy and a girl. And they visited a fun fair. And it was like, I think it was about comparatives. And then I think we used maybe another video about superlatives. I'm not quite sure if you like this. I can find this even a channel on YouTube. And you can also
share, please.
It's beautiful, I think.
Share, please, Natasha.
It's like grammatical, funny lessons, but I think they're very interesting.
Only on comparison or different grammar?
There are many grammar videos with this hamster, but as this topic, I find it not very easy for our students. So my groups really liked these videos.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I've got an extra exercise, which is not in our books, to practice comparative form, and it helps to personalize this practice. I can demonstrate.
Okay. Demonstrate, please.
Here we've got the adjectives about the chart, and there is an example also. Firstly, I ask about the names of children, then we discuss these points like age, weight, and height, and I can ask the questions like how old is Holly, or is Jenny tall, or is Pete short, or who is heavy, who is thin. So just to clarify these adjectives if the children are not aware about them. And then we read this example and we check, like I color these I ask children to color the information, like Mike is older than Holly, and I ask them to color the information in the chart, which can prove this, that Mike is 13, Holly is 12, so is Mike really older? Yes, he is. And then I give a limit of time, like 3 or 5 minutes, it depends on group. And I ask children to write as many sentences as they can to compare these children. When they are ready with these sentences, they write me in the last column, and they compare themselves with these children.
They can use all 4 children to compare?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I don't limit them, because some children choose one person and compare themselves with one, And some children like comparing with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I usually limit in time, or I limit in the number of sentences they have to do.
Okay, and what do you do if they don't know the height and weight?
Usually they know, because they have this medical check every year in their schools. And if they don't know, we just look at the age and we think about the approximate number. But I think there were really little number of students who don't know.
In your space one, we have practically the same exercise, and I just add, I ask my students to write, as Katya said, sentences, but write 2 false sentences. And when they read aloud, someone tried to guess what was false.
Yeah, that helps them to listen and to be attentive. Sometimes we need these tasks.
Great idea.
Okay. Actually, I add some personalization at the beginning, so maybe it's not only for SM3 as this task we can meet, as Lena has already mentioned in your space 1. Also, recently we have it in prepare 2, so lower levels, but yeah, the grammar is more or less quite similar. I add personalization at the beginning of the class, but I ask like a lead-in, like very fast lead-in. I ask them the questions using correct grammar construction. So let's compare, let's look. So look, who is taller, Masha or Dasha? Okay, and okay, Masha, how old are you? Dasha, how old are you? So, okay, who is older? And children, according to their intuition, they understand this, but it can vary. It can be also as a follow-up. So you can use it as lead-in or follow-up, but kids usually like this kind of personalization. When they come, everybody look at them and they are so special, like superstars. Yeah, that's okay. Even teenagers actually who are 13 or 14, and they are shy and they come like, oh, they are taller than me now, but they like Okay, so actually it's difficult. No, sometimes difficult because they should keep in mind it's more or suffix er. Sometimes it's hard. We need to drill and practice a lot this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
For sharing.
So have you noticed this links in the chat? You can copy. For you, I think it's a good channel to learn some grammar with this funny hamster. Please enjoy.
Yeah, go get her. Yes, good.
Thank you, Natasha. Okay. So then the next construction is going to, and in our books it's connected with weather. So what I suggest, how we can drill this. We can play a weather game. Here you need 2 sets of cards with weather and with different activities. And as we see in this picture, students turn the cards and make sentences. For example, it's going to be rainy, I'm not going to play tennis. And the next student opens and says, it's going to be hot, I'm going to swim. And then they count the points for these sentences, for the correct sentences. So this is what the book says. And what I like to do is playing this game. I think everyone knows it. So we can print, or we can give them laminated papers with these adjectives. Ask them to work in pairs. So someone plays with nose and another with the crosses, and they choose the adjective, they make sentences, put crosses and notes, and they can play several times. Then they change the rules and they memorize this construction and these adjectives, and they revise some activity words, games, sports, and so on. So this is great, and everyone loves it, and they want to play and play and play this game.
Can I share with my idea?
Yes.
Here? So as we have this unit recently, I remember something. Yeah, we have such a website as swap windows, where we can see different countries in real time. And so I asked my students to guess what's the weather going to be like in the next country. So they make the sentence, it's going to be windy, and when they click on this button, swap window, and they can see the picture. If the class is small, you can give each student the number of points, and if the class is big, divide them into teams and play as teams.
Elena, I think that's great for online lessons also.
Yeah,
for Katya, for example.
Might be. I can send the link.
Yeah, send please. And also,
may I?
Yes.
Just finish and then I.
Sure. Okay, I wanted to say that when we start this topic, we usually think about the weekend and the weather. So it's spring, and a lot of children go to their dachas and so on. So they can share some plans. They can say what weather is going to be and what they're going to do in their dachas.
Yes. That's why I just want to add this idea. Maybe you will use it too, because we used this in my lessons. We talked a lot about weather. Yes, we listened to what the forecast is, and also I found some information in the internet how to present the differences between hot, cool, chilly, or freezing weather. So we took temperature too, and it was very interesting to do the next activity in the end of the lesson. They used their smartphones in pairs, and they found information about the weekend. It was like for the 7th and 8th of May, yes. And then they wrote sentences about their plans. What are they going to do? Where they are going to go? And they shared this information. Yeah, that was great. They were very happy to use their smartphones.
Of course, not games, but something, at least at the lesson. Not every time we can allow them to use the smartphones.
And also it was interesting because we didn't repeat the information, because there are some students and they shared the weather, conditions about Moscow, not only Dolgoprovitsa. They were happy.
Okay, thank you, Natasha, for sharing. So let's move on then. Oh, and here we start Superminds 4. The first, I think maybe not the first, the starter unit, yes. The starter unit is full of grammar, present and past simple, and sometimes students have problems here. So we start with the dialogue between journalist and Ben, where Ben answers a lot of questions. So what I usually do, we discuss this picture, then I ask students to cover the answers, these letters A and B, and we look only at the questions and we predict the answers. So what could Ben possibly answer? And then they open, they listen and circle. Then we need to practice these questions, and they work in pairs. some of them are journalists, some of them are interviewed people, and they answer about themselves. And then after these dialogues, each student tells about their partner. Here can be very funny stories, because once I couldn't divide my students into pairs because one student didn't want to work in a group of 3, and I couldn't let him work alone here. So I decided to be his partner, and I asked him questions, and then he asked me. And then he asked me, Yelena, what do you like doing in your free time? I told that I like playing badminton. And then he asked me about my best friend. I said that it is Dima. But after this task, when everyone was telling about their partners, this particular student told that Yelena likes playing computer games and your best friend is Maria. I didn't understand why, but it was such a funny situation that everyone laughed. And now this student is more attentive. And everyone understands that they need not only to ask questions and answer something, but also to memorize what other people say. So, what about you? How do you cope with this?
I don't work with Superminds phones here.
So this the general procedure is the same, but being a grammatically addicted person, I usually extend this activity and I direct the attention on usage of do and is to make sentences.
It was about the next. It was yeah.
I do it on this page because for practicing, I want them to be aware of what they do. I usually ask them to underline verbs, like actions, which they can see, and then show that in each sentence where they have action, they have do.
You are speaking about exercise 2. Yes.
I usually do it in the after listening.
Okay, because the next slide is about this.
Yes, I see, but I usually do it before to show that it works not only in the rule, it works in the real speech, because children usually think about the second exercise like a rule. Okay, they got the rule, but then they don't use it because, okay, we understood the rule. In writing, we use it. In speaking, we don't think about it. And that's why I sometimes show that it works in listening, it works in speaking, and everywhere.
Oh yeah, we can underline verbs and adjectives in the first and the second, and then they practice. Yeah, so this, the next slide, this one was about underline, highlighting the verbs and adjectives. Yeah, I agree with you. That's sometimes it's really helpful. They use it in schools and they understand it. And the same with past. I also underline verbs and adjectives and it becomes easier for them.
And what is difficult in Superminds 4 in the beginning of the course, that they immediately have to differentiate the past and present after summer holidays. And usually I use one exercise. Again, I can show if you're. It's very fast. Usually they do it really fast. There is the usual moment in the family life where mom does everything. And I tell that, but yesterday mom went out to the cafe with her best friend to celebrate her birthday, and dad left alone at home and he had to do everything. And then they, we analyze this example, we underline this S and underline the past form with ED. And then guys are writing their sentences.
And also you can divide them into 2 groups.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be a competition again. So the first group makes sentence in present simple, another in past simple.
Mm-hmm.
So you show them the picture, they say.
Yeah, it will be more interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Katya.
Лен, thank you very much. See you, girls.
Thank you, Elin.
Bye-bye.
So the next is a role play. So in our books, we have this page with 2 cards for student A and B. I really love these tasks because they have the situations we don't need to imagine anything, and they have this useful language part. So this one is about beasts, fantastic beasts. Here you can give them some pictures, or students imagine their own creatures. I usually show them pictures from my program to summer camp when I was in charge of Harry Potter summer camp. I downloaded a lot of very crazy pictures, and now I use them at my lessons. So they really like these bright pictures and the names. For example, this is a Whooper. That's very difficult to say, but students love, and they want to discuss more and more animals. So you can give them the picture so they imagine their own ones. Then you discuss these 2 cards with students. Then you can ask one strong student and act out the dialogue with him. Then you ask students to work in pairs, and they choose the card. They use this language in the box, which helps them to plan the dialogue, and they practice. Then they swap the roles, or maybe they can perform this dialogue in front of the whole class. So it can be in different ways. But the task is great, and I recommend you to do it, not skip. Because here it's like controlled practice of speaking. They speak, and they practically don't make mistakes. And then they memorize this language, and at home, when they need to complete exercises in workbooks, they have no problems in ordering the sentences and writing their own dialogue. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's quite useful conversation. So if we have time, I always do this task, as you mentioned about. Yeah, that's can be it can be with a stronger student first, or we can even write possible questions and answers fully for a weaker group if it is, and giving some space for their imagination. Of course, and after that they may practice conversations in pairs, and then can in open pairs for the whole class, for instance. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know, that's we lack of time, and maybe once I don't have enough time for this exercise, unfortunately, though it may take a whole lesson for me with students with proper preparation, with all the stages, plus we checked homework, it may be the lesson.
Well, I think it takes like 20 minutes. This. Yes, Natasha.
Lian, as you use, when you use this step number 3 with usable language, do you ask them to take some notes when they're preparing these dialogues, or they just speaking on the spot? And then
on the spot. On the spot,
On the
yes,
spot.
Natasha, because
Yeah.
if we give them some time to prepare,
Yeah.
well, I think we waste time here because the dialogues are quite short, and then when they make one dialogue, they change roles, and we have time, we can make new pairs, so they can practice several dialogues, and if they write their dialogues, they will make only one.
Yes,
it is
I
about
agree with you,
speaking,
because
so they need more
I-
speak.
So this year I don't have SEM4, I'm going to have it next year, but almost the same activity was with the SEM3 when they were speaking about their town, yes, a visitor and the native. So it was on the spot activity, and this time I also used onion rings idea, so they
You like onion
their
rings?
roles. No, I don't know how, but I found this and I tried, and it worked really well, because students have had an opportunity to move, yes, and not just to sit. And yeah, it was quite interesting.
Okay, thank you, Natasha.
And I think that as for you, Anya Dmitrieva, maybe you will have this like a good tip. I always use these activities when I have a test. Like they do the test maybe, and then they have an opportunity to move to do mingling or something. Like to divide the lesson into parts.
To reward them for the test.
Yeah.
To have this activity.
Yeah, and may I ask, so if we talk about these dialogues with the role model, with role play, because as it was said, we had it in some 3 books, with town, with pizza restaurant, with doctors. So is the procedure the same for all of the dialogues? So students don't write mostly. So they mingle and
speak.
talk.
They speak, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next task is about scrapbook, but we have welcome notebooks instead of them. And usually we skip these activities, but some of them can be very useful. For example, this one, we have here 2 reviews in exercise 1, and students are supposed to read and decide which one is better. Yes. And then they use the better one to produce a piece of writing, personalized writing. So exercise 2 we usually do as a whole class activity because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Well, if it is individual, I need to check what everyone writes, but that's not interesting because the topic is the same. If we have 10 children and they write about the clown, that's not interesting to read. So we do it all together. They look at this model review. They tell me the sentences and I type them on my computer and demonstrate on the screen. Then with exercises 3 and 4, we can ask them to work individually or in pairs. So this year I asked them to work in pairs, and they chose one book that they both read, they liked, and they wrote short plan in their books, and then they wrote texts in their notebooks, and then they presented their text. So they divided in 2 parts. One person read the first part, another the second part. So and others listened. So we did it in this way, and I think this took like 30 or 40 minutes. But sometimes we need it because they need to practice writing. We can't always skip these tasks. So what about you? Do you skip them or you write texts?
More often I skip, but maybe I will try this idea next year, because we have writing tasks in practice books.
Yes, we have.
Yes, and that's why maybe sometimes I substitute this.
Well, but in practice books, they are more difficult and sometimes students are stuck. Yeah, and here they're shorter and they're not so scared and frightened. Yeah. So, and of course we can draw the covers if we have time. So here in number 4, it says draw the cover. We can give them some minutes to enjoy drawing.
Well, I think it's a great idea to let them draw, but without writing the name of the book. And then we can make them listen to each other by putting the drawings on the board or on the walls, and then listen to the description of the book and find the right cover, maybe.
Yes, yeah, but in this way we need to I think spend the whole lesson on this.
Yeah, of course it will be time consuming.
Yeah. So if we have time, we can do this.
Actually, I have never done it.
Okay, some of you asked about story time texts. So Karina told us a lot of very nice things and brilliant ideas in her workshop or session about exploitation. So we can watch it again and implement her ideas like text bingo or this chart. Yes, about Johnny's story. I really like this idea with the secret of the Egyptian cat, this timeline and matching what happened in each period of time. And also, well, I always skip this text. I don't know why. Maybe we don't have time. So I think that we never read it to any group. So, but maybe next year I will find some time to read it, and I will use this idea with must in these sentences. So I think that's it. We can stop here. So thank you everyone for coming, for sharing your ideas, for writing your problems in my document. It was really helpful. So I think these 2 sessions were productive, yes, and beneficial, yeah. And of course they're at the end of the year, but these ideas we can implement in the future year. Yeah. So
next year as well.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for these sessions. Maybe we can repeat them next year.
Like we have the weapon for the next year now.
And yes, discuss next levels, the SM5, prepare, why not?
With prepare, we can ask Anya or Katya, I think. And with Super Safari, Natasha, you can. Okay.
Yes,
so
I'm ready, always ready.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really useful.
Yes,
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you for coming.
So thank you and bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye. Have a great day.
Have a good day. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.